There are people who walk into a room and something shifts. You can't quite put your finger on what it is. They're not necessarily the most attractive person there, not the loudest, not the one with the most impressive resume or the funniest joke. But somehow, everyone wants to be near them. Everyone leaves the conversation feeling better than when it started. And days later, you're still thinking about something they said. We call this charisma, and for most of our lives, we've been told it's something you either have or you don't, that it's a gift, a personality type, something wired into certain people at birth that the rest of us can only admire from a distance. But that's not what the research says. Olivia Fox-Cabane, who spent years studying charisma in leaders, executives, and highly magnetic individuals, found that charisma is not a fixed trait. It is a collection of specific behaviors. Learnable behaviors. Habits that the most charismatic people in the world have practiced so long, they no longer even realize they're doing them. And today, I'm going to walk you through 7 of those habits. Not as a checklist, not as a performance script, but as a window into what's actually happening when someone makes you feel the way charismatic people make you feel, so you can understand it, internalize it, and start doing it naturally yourself. Let's start with the one that underlies everything else. The thing that almost every genuinely charismatic person does, without exception, and that almost nobody else does anymore in a world of constant distraction. They are completely, entirely, undividedly present. When a charismatic person is talking to you, you feel like you are the only person in the room. Not because they've said that, not because they've told you how important you are, but because every signal their body and their attention is sending tells you, right now, in this moment, nothing else exists except this conversation. They're not glancing at their phone. They're not scanning the room over your shoulder. They're not half forming their next response while you're still talking. They are here, fully here. And that experience of someone's complete, undivided attention is so rare in the modern world that when you encounter it, it feels almost overwhelming. It feels like being seen, and people are starving for that. The second thing they do, and this one is so small that most people dismiss it, is they use your name, not in an excessive, salesman-y way that feels rehearsed, but naturally, deliberately, at the right moments. When they're making a point they want you to really hear, when they're expressing something genuine, when they're saying goodbye. Dale Carnegie wrote about this over 80 years ago, that a person's name is to them the sweetest, most important sound in any language. And the neuroscience backs this up completely. Studies using brain imaging have shown that hearing your own name activates distinct regions of the brain associated with self-referential processing, regions that aren't activated by hearing any other word. Your name, to your brain, is a signal that says, "This is about you. Pay attention. You matter here." When someone uses your name with warmth and intention, something in you responds to that before your conscious mind even registers it. You feel, on some level, more real in that conversation, more valued. And you associate that feeling, however unconsciously, with the person who created it. The third thing is something you will notice the moment you start paying attention to it in high charisma individuals. They speak slowly, more slowly than most people, with pauses that feel deliberate rather than uncertain. They are in no rush to fill the air, and because of that, every word they say carries weight. You actually listen because you sense that what's coming is worth waiting for. We've talked about this before on this channel, but it bears repeating here because it shows up in almost every charismatic person without exception. Speed signals anxiety, slowness signals certainty, and people are drawn to certainty the way they're drawn to warmth on a cold day. When someone speaks like they believe what they're saying is worth hearing, you start to believe it too. The fourth thing is one that surprises people when they first hear it, because it seems like a weakness, but it's actually one of the most sophisticated social skills that exists. Charismatic people laugh at themselves first. Before anyone else can, before the awkward moment can linger, they name it, they own it. They turn it into a moment of connection rather than a moment of embarrassment, and in doing so, they signal something that makes everyone in the room relax. They signal, "I don't take myself too seriously. I'm secure enough to be human. You don't have to be perfect around me because I'm not performing perfection for you." Psychologists call this the pratfall effect. Research by Elliot Aronson found that competent people who occasionally show human imperfection are actually rated as more likable than people who appear flawless. Because perfection creates distance, vulnerability creates closeness. And when a charismatic person laughs at their own mistake before anyone else can judge them for it, they've turned a potential moment of weakness into a moment of genuine, disarming warmth. The fifth thing is something I want you to notice the next time you're around someone who truly magnetizes a room. Pay attention to the questions they ask. They don't ask what you do for a living and move on. They don't ask surface questions and accept surface answers. They ask the question underneath the question. They pick up on one detail, one specific thing you mentioned, and they follow it somewhere deeper. What made you start doing that? What does that actually feel like from the inside? What's the part of that nobody talks about? These are questions that say, I am not asking because it's polite to ask. I am asking because I genuinely want to know. And when someone asks you something, this shows they've actually been listening, that they found something interesting enough in what you said to explore it further. You feel something click, a kind of rare recognition, the feeling that this conversation is actually going somewhere real. The sixth thing is the one that people remember most, sometimes years later. Charismatic people remember things about you, small things, things you mentioned once, in passing, without expectation that anyone was particularly paying attention. You mentioned you had a difficult week coming up, and 3 weeks later, they ask how it went. You told them in an earlier conversation that your sister was going through something hard, and they remember, not because they kept a file on you, but because they were actually present when you told them, and because they cared enough to hold on to it. There is a particular feeling that comes from someone remembering a small detail about your life. A feeling that says, in the time since we last spoke, you existed in their mind. You weren't forgotten. You mattered enough to be retained. And that feeling, subtle as it is, creates a depth of connection that almost nothing else can replicate as quickly. The seventh thing, and this is the one that separates truly charismatic people from those who are simply charming one-on-one, is that they make everyone feel included. Not just the person they find most interesting, not just the most attractive or the most impressive. Everyone. In a group conversation, they notice who has gone quiet. They create openings. What do you think about that? For the person who hasn't spoken yet, they never let anyone stand on the edge of a conversation feeling invisible, and this isn't just social grace. It's a form of emotional generosity that people feel deeply, even when they can't name exactly what you did, because most people in group settings are focused on the people they want to impress. Charismatic people are focused on making sure no one walks away feeling unseen. And that difference, that small but profound shift in where the attention goes, is what makes entire rooms fall in love with them. Now here's what I want you to notice about all 7 of these habits. Not one of them is about being more impressive. Not one of them is about having better stories, sharper wit, or more interesting things to say. Every single one of them is about making the people around you feel something. Seen, valued, interesting, included, understood. That is the real secret of charisma. It was never about you. It was always about them. And that is extraordinarily good news, because you don't need to be born with anything special to make people feel something. You just need to shift your focus from how you're coming across to how the people around you are feeling. From performing to genuinely connecting, start with just one of these 7 things. Pick the one that feels most natural to you and practice it in your next 3 conversations. Full presence, using someone's name, asking the deeper question, remembering one detail, any of them. All of them lead to the same place, to people remembering how you made them feel, long after they've forgotten everything else about the conversation. This is low-key mind, because charisma was never the gift of the few. It's just a set of habits that most people never bothered to learn. Subscribe if this gave you something to think about. Share it with someone who you think is already doing some of these without realizing it, and drop a comment below which one of these 7 hit closest to home for you. I'll see you in the next one.